Hello and welcome to Astro Hi-Fi. My name is Gabby Turner, and in this video we're going to be looking at the energies of the full moon in Pisces on September 10th, 2022. The full moon is going to be at 17 degrees and 41 minutes of Pisces. And of course, always a full moon is going to be exactly opposite the sun. The sun will be at 17 degrees 41 of Virgo. And I'm really going to be focusing a lot in this video on this particular axis and bringing in some asteroids to help explain the energy. But overall, I would say, this is a full moon where there's a lot of focus on the commitments that we make and the problems that arise that either, make it difficult to know if we should make a commitment or not, or that make it difficult for us to want to keep particular commitments. But there are lots of commitment level issues coming up, and we're going to talk about those with this full moon. And the moon magic tidbit, which I like to do with all of my full moon and new moon charts. If you're doing moon magic at this time, it was kind of hard for me to come up with something to do because this is not a very easy full moon. There are positive aspects to it, but in any case, my moon magic tidbit for this full moon is you could use moon magic now to increase your faith in the essential goodness of people, including yourself, while also strengthening your capacity to draw up firm and clear boundaries against the kinds of destructive human behaviors that seem to contradict that underlying goodness. So people are always going to be doing things that make it hard for us to believe in their essential goodness. Sometimes we may have trouble believing in our own essential goodness, but there is something here with Neptune being conjunct the full moon in its own sign of Pisces that does allow us to tap into that beautiful faith in our essential goodness, right? So in any way, that's my moon magic tidbit. There, of course, you could use this moon magic for other things as well. There's going to be a pretty delightful sextile from the new moon over here to Uranus and the North Node. So that could be tapped into also. But there's this also an ongoing difficult aspect to Mars in Gemini. This square, there was a square to the previous new moon in Virgo that was at 4 degrees Virgo, and now Mars is squaring both the sun and the moon in a T-square aspect at this full moon. So Mars in Gemini, is giving this ongoing energy, and eventually it's going to retrograde. So Mars is going to be in Gemini for kind of a long time, and it does bring about some sort of like contentious and argumentative potentials, especially when it's making squares, like it is right here. But in any case, I want to focus on the full moon, and I'm going to be bringing in some asteroids and things like that as well. So let's notice that the moon over here in Pisces, let's see, I want to use pink. Pink seems appropriate somehow. At 17 degrees is conjunct the asteroids Nessus and Juno, and it's also conjunct Neptune, as I already said, which is the ruler of the sign of Pisces. Neptune has been in Pisces for many years now. I don't remember which year it actually entered Pisces, but it's a very slow-moving planet. But in any case, the feeling that I get here, because Juno has to do with commitments we make to people, and anytime you make a commitment, like when people give their marriage vows, there's that whole in good times and in bad mentality. So that's what Juno is all about. It's recognizing that if I make a commitment to someone or something, so if I make a commitment to a business partnership, or if I make a commitment to anything, keeping that commitment means through the good times and the bad. It could be even like I'm committing to a a journey of greater fitness, you know. There may be times when you're not seeing any progress in that journey, but being committed means that you stay committed regardless of the fact that you're not, you know, always going to be seeing these glorious results. If it's a marriage commitment, you know, you're not always going to be in a sort of honeymoon period. You know, if you're lucky, you could have honeymoon periods that reemerge throughout your marriage, but it's not always going to be flowers and sunshine in anything that we commit to. If you commit to a particular career, there may be moments where you're like, ugh, God, you know, like I just don't want to do it right now. So, of course, we can always make the choice to end a commitment. That's always possible. But then on the other end of this full moon at the sun, because a full moon is not just created by the moon, it's created through this balance of the sun and the moon's cycle with each other. The sun is conjunct Orcus, and I'm going to get into this mythology of Juno, Nessus, and Orcus just a little bit, not too deeply, but just enough to explain what I think is going on here with the energy of this full moon. So Orcus, I actually can't remember which pantheon Orcus is from. There's not a lot known about him, but he was basically a god of the underworld. And I would say, based on what I've read, that he's a little bit like the Satan from Christianity that is the punishing Satan, right? There's Satan the tempter, but then there's also the Satan who's in charge of punishing us for our sins. You know, Orcus doesn't represent the tempting side of Satan. Orcus represents only the punishing side of Satan. You know, that's just my personal interpretation of Orcus based on what I've read. So I know a lot of us, you know, if you have any familiarity with Christianity at all, you have a lot of associations with Satan. I'm just saying that in terms of being a god of the underworld who punishes us for our sins, that's sort of what Orcus represents. In particular, Orcus is known for punishing those who go against their oaths, oath breakers. So basically, we're bringing up, again, the issue of commitment, which was brought up, you know, before when we talked about Juno, because she is an asteroid that relates to, you know, how we make our choices and what we need in order to make the choice to commit. This is Juno right here. And Orcus here is at 13 degrees of Virgo, conjunct the sun. So the issue is that when we make a commitment, which we're going to do hopefully under the best of circumstances, obviously sometimes, you know, people, you know, can get married in a whirlwind or something and make a bad decision. Or sometimes you think you know who you're marrying and you still don't really know until you're years into it. But I feel like the issue here with Orcus is that, you know, there is a sort of punishment, you know, even if it's just through the excruciating circumstances of coming to a point of realizing, like, okay, I've made a commitment that I don't want to be in, or I've made a commitment that, you know, I want to keep my commitment, but this is horrible. But either way, you know, people who divorces are not enjoyable processes, you know. So leaving something that you've committed to, when you realize that this is something that you can no longer bear, is in itself sort of a punishment. So there's a lot of reflections of that in this particular full moon right now. And then we can bring in Nessus. Oh, goodness gracious. Nessus has a very interesting, this is an interesting and a bit of a difficult myth. So Nessus was helping Hercules and his wife cross some river. I can't remember now the name of the river, but Nessus was helping them to cross the river. I think Hercules had kind of gone ahead, and then Nessus was helping the wife cross the river. And During that moment, Nessus took advantage of the opportunity to be alone with her, essentially. I mean, Hercules was off in the distance, but Nessus, he raped her. He raped Hercules' wife as he was helping her across the river. And Hercules, I guess, became aware of what was happening. I don't know if she was yelling for him or what, but he turns around and Hercules, always carrying around these poisoned arrows, takes the poisoned arrows and shoots one at Nessus. And as he's dying, Nessus says to Hercules' wife, and I wish I could remember, I think her name is Deianira, but I could be wrong about that. But in any case, Nessus says to Hercules' wife, as he is dying, he says, take this cloak. So he takes a cloak off of himself that he's been wearing. He says, take this cloak. And if Hercules is ever unfaithful to me, you can use this cloak to call out to me, and I will return to you. So she takes the cloak with her. She goes off with Hercules. Nessus is now dead, right? But she still has his cloak. And then one day, Hercules' wife does feel or suspect, or maybe she knows for certain, but she perceives that Hercules has been unfaithful to her. And so she takes the cloak that Nessus has given her. This is what it is. Nessus told her, you can put it on Hercules. I think that's what he said. You can put this cloak on Hercules if you ever suspect that he's been unfaithful, and I will return to you. So she does. She puts the cloak on Hercules, and it kills him because it has poison in it. So with this myth of Nessus, it brings up a lot of the themes that do end up causing some of the major detriments to commitments, or some of the themes that make us question whether or not we should commit to someone to begin with at all. And because all of this, so those themes being abuse, betrayal, jealousy, guilt, vengefulness, deceit. So all of these themes, these are definitely the more problematic themes that we face or potentially can face in our relationships and in our commitments. When these types of themes come up, and they often do, actually, unfortunately. I mean, as a tarot reader, I read for a lot of clients, and betrayal and deceit or suspicion are very common themes in relationships. But these also make it very difficult for us to want to continue to be committed. And this is all happening in the sign of Pisces, and conjunct Neptune as well. So Pisces is a sign that is very compassionate. Pisces is a sign that wants to see the potential in everyone and everything at its best, right? Every sign, has a lot of aspects to it, and especially Pisces being the 12th sign of the zodiac is a little bit of an amalgamation of all of the signs leading up to it. But, Pisces tends to, want to sometimes idealize a situation or see it the way that my emotions are telling me to see it. And so with Pisces, that can even be if you're feeling fearful, then you may want to see your partner as cheating on you when they actually aren't, because that reality or that perception is fulfilling what your emotions are already telling you to be true. So in the sign of Pisces, it's very difficult to see the reality, because our emotions and our gut instincts and our intuition are all trying to tell us what the reality is. And those things can tell us the reality. We can intuitively know things that we don't have evidence for. But we can also allow our imaginations to run away from us, and it's very difficult to know which one is happening. Is this actually my intuition that my partner is cheating? Am I correct? Are my gut instincts correct? Or am I just paranoid? On the other side of it, the evidence could be incredibly clear to everyone else around you, but you could be wearing rose-colored glasses in your relationship and not want to see the truth that to everybody else is very clear. You know, the red flags. There's a tarot reader on YouTube called Mary Jim, and she used this in one of her videos. She said, oh, were those red flags? I thought those were wedding bells, right? So that is an energy that can happen here as well with Juno and Pisces, especially Juno conjunct Nessus, right? Juno conjuncting Nessus. I've already explained what Nessus relates to, those themes of trauma, abuse, betrayal, deception, guilt, shame, and you know, those are things that, in terms of commitments right now, especially if this Juno and Nessus at 14 and 15 degrees and the full moon at 17, if they're aspecting something in your natal chart, these are going to be, you know, themes that you are experiencing right now regarding choices in your commitments. Either a commitment that you're already in, or you know, just that general idea of commitments, you know. Should I commit to someone? Do I really know who this person is? We could be seeing red flags that aren't really there, or we could be blatantly ignoring red flags. We could be forgiving and looking past red flags that we, you know, shouldn't be forgiving or looking past. So there's a lot going on here, where it may not be the best time to make commitment decisions. Or we may be coming to an emotional head in our commitments where these themes are really being highlighted and we kind of can't avoid them. So also we have this ongoing square aspect to Mars in Gemini. So all of these issues, if these are issues that are coming up right now for you in your relationships or other commitments that you have in your life, then, you know, the Mars and Gemini aspect of it, because Mars is, you know, sort of hostility, assertion, selfishness. Mars wants to pursue its own agenda at all costs. It doesn't really want to take into account what other people want or need. And here Mars is in the sign of Gemini, and Gemini has to do with communications and the intellect. So what I could see happening here is, you know, people trying to outwit each other, to outplay each other, or just to be the one who has the last word, the one who wins the argument. You know, but this whole energy to me brings up questions of like, is it really worth it? You know, if you win the argument, was it worth it? Was all that happened in that argument worth it? Are you really even getting anywhere? Especially with this T-square to the sun and the moon, which kind of just locks in this hostility. You know, it makes it even more difficult for this hostility to actually bring any sort of progress. You know, it can be very helpful for us to stick up for ourselves and to speak up for ourselves and to speak our truth. But I do feel like there's a bit of a danger at this full moon to be speaking up in ways that are really just maybe counterproductive, actually. And, you know, then we do have, as I said, I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, we have this kind of pleasant aspect as well of the full moon being in a sextile aspect to the North Node in Uranus. And that is also trining the sun. So when we think about all of these issues regarding our commitments and how we can be confused and have a difficult time seeing the truth, beyond what we want the truth to be, our idealized truth of our commitments versus the actual truth of our commitments and our relationships. There is a sextile aspect here to Uranus and the North Node, which I feel like is saying, if we want to bring about some sort of change, if we want to end old habits or patterns, that is available to us. We don't have to stay stuck in this dynamic. We don't have to stay stuck in destructive dynamics. We can seek out stability through the sign of Taurus. We can rise to the challenge of, revolutionizing our approach to our commitments with the North Node and Uranus in order to bring greater stability. One of the things, in a psychological sense that this whole dynamic brought to mind for me was that of, there's something in psychology called it's called the drama triangle. It's this pattern we can fall into unconsciously in our relationships, not just in romantic relationships, but in friendships, definitely family relationships, even with our colleagues at work. But it's called the drama triangle, and we can fall into these particular roles: the victim, the rescuer, and the persecutor. Sometimes they're given different names as well. And it's basically, a dysfunctional dynamic where one person seems to be the victim, someone else is rescuing them, but that rescuer could be actually perpetuating a victim mentality in the quote-unquote victim because this person likes being the hero, right? If I'm always the hero, that requires there to always be a victim. And then there's the persecutor / perpetrator, which in terms of our astrology here, that could be Orcus as the persecutor who's, bringing punishments, punishing us for wrongdoings, for breaking oaths or for behaving badly. Or the perpetrator, which would be nessus, who's being abusive. But in any case, that's just something you might want to look into more. I'll try to provide some links to content explaining the drama triangle and how to get out of it, because I think that's the issue here with this, sextile to Uranus and the North Node. It's kind of like, okay, we can get trapped in it if we fall back into these hostilities represented by Mars in this T-square, or we can get out of the drama triangle, right? So I'm not going to be very good at explaining what that process is of how to get out of the drama triangle, but I will post some content below that does help to explain that if this general dynamic seems to be resonating for you and you're like, wow, yeah, I don't want to be living in this reality anymore. I do want to get out of the drama triangle. So in any case, I hope that this has been helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye-bye.